What went wrong with Halloween Kills? You're going to want to listen to this. Let's go. What's going on, guys? Today, we're going to talk about an article that I read and found really interesting, talking about the issues with Halloween Kills and what went wrong with the movie. And I wanted to cover this article and the points that they brought up and give my own opinion on those things. Some things might be valid to you guys and some things may not, but as always, this is a fun discussion to have. So we have the article that is from Screen Rant that just came out. I believe it was just recently, a couple days ago. It says, what went wrong with Halloween Kills? And it starts off by saying the franchise has gone through different retcons. Not all of them have been beneficial to Michael Myers' story and the saga in general. But Halloween Kills stands as one of the biggest failures in the franchise. And here's what went wrong with it. Now, first of all, I don't know if I want to say it's the biggest. Listen, I love this article, man. I don't know if I want to say it's one of the biggest failures in the franchise, but we'll get into that. It says, after the underperformance of Halloween Resurrection in 2002 and the not-so-successful remakes by Rob Zombie in 2007 and 2009, the Halloween franchise was brought back to life in 2018 with a new trilogy and brand new timeline serving as a direct continuation of John Carpenter's original 1978 movie, and thus ignoring all the sequels that came after it. And it pretty much goes into talking about the storyline of 2018 and how Michael came back into the fold and so forth. But then it goes into 6 reasons why Halloween Kills had issues. Okay, number 6, Halloween Kills Sideline Laurie Strode. All right, guys, so let's start with this. It basically talks about how in Halloween Kills, they did the same thing as they did in Halloween 2 from 1981, meaning that Laurie was in a hospital and was not a part of the story much. And they also go on to talk about how in Halloween Kills, she's even less a part of the story than she was in Halloween 2, and that they focused on the minor characters, except for Allison, who kind of comes to the forefront to be the lead, which I thought was actually a good thing. You know, they set up Allison in 2018 to kind of be a focal point of sorts outside of Laurie Strode. Now, in my opinion, so I'm going to talk about this point first. In my opinion, I didn't have a problem with Laurie being sidelined. Obviously, she was injured after the events of 2018 and she was in the hospital, and her character had the dialogue with Frank and obviously with her daughter and so forth. And I think that that's kind of what was giving us a lot of storyline outside of Haddonfield and Michael. I've said this before. Halloween Kills is Michael's movie. That's Michael's movie and his rampage. It's also Haddonfield's movie because it shows how the people that live in the town have been affected by his actions, by the death and the toll that it's taken on them. So, and of course, it led them to become, vigilantes and so forth. So I didn't have an issue with Laurie being sidelined at all, to be quite honest. And I think that it actually worked really well because it allowed the story to focus on Michael and these other characters, especially Allison. I think that that was a really great way for Allison to kind of be in the forefront. But it also gave Karen some really nice character arcs, especially midway through the movie and when all the pandemonium was happening in the hospital. And it was kind of like Karen finally was totally open to this situation and what was going on and all of that type of stuff. So I didn't have an issue with Laurie being sidelined. Would it have been nice if they figured out a way to have had her in it more or more in the outside story? Sure, but it totally made sense. Now, the next point that they bring up, number 5, they said that it focused too much on these minor characters. And again, I did not have an issue with that because with these minor characters, you were able to allow Michael to do what he does. And again, people that have issue with Halloween Kills, I get it. They talk about how the editing is a little odd. They talk about how some things don't make sense, and all these types of things. And some of that is fair, but again, we get to see a movie where Michael Myers is literally, I mean, he is in another zone, even right in the beginning with the firefighter scene. To me, it's some of the best imagery of Michael Myers that I've ever seen. The camera work was amazing, the cinematography, even with the recreation scene, seeing the events of what happened after he got shot by Loomis. I mean, I think those were some great things, and you were allowed to do that because Laurie was in the hospital and we had these minor characters plus Allison. So to me, that made perfect sense. I didn't have any issue whatsoever with it focusing on the minor characters. The next point it brings up, and this is a good one. This is probably the point that I have the most issue with. It says Halloween Kills failed to explain why Michael wanted to go home. And the article goes on to say Tommy, Allison, Lonnie, and Cameron mapped out Michael's path and location of his victims and deduced that he was heading towards his childhood home, and they were right. Michael killed the current owners of his family home and stayed there, where he was later confronted by Allison, Lonnie, and Cameron. And it was even mentioned that since he was a kid, he had a thing for looking out of the window of his sister's room. Halloween Kills made the Myers house an important setting, but never really explained why. Only that Michael wanted to go back home and stare through the window in Judith's room again. In the end, the he just wants to go home part of Michael Myers' storyline and Kills was only used to kill Cameron, Lonnie, and bring Michael to the angry Haddonfield mob, only for Michael to kill them all, with the icing on the very bloody cake being Michael killing Karen in Judith's room. And then it goes on to say Halloween Ends completely forgot about this part of Michael's story, and an Easter egg even revealed that the Myers house was demolished at one point between Carpenter's movie and the reboot. So, this is how I look at it. They said Michael wants to go home. They said that he wants to get back to the window. In the hospital, Frank even said that he deduced that maybe it wasn't that Michael was looking out, but maybe he was looking within his own darkness and so forth. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me as far as why, because Michael's mythology has always had a lot of mystery in it. Why did he kill Judith? Why did he just kind of shut down afterwards? Why did he shut down after Loomis shot him 6 times? When they show the recreation scene, he just kind of shuts down instead of, going on a rampage like he did with the firefighters. The cops just get him. He's just standing there and he gets hit and Loomis almost kills him right there, but he didn't even move. Why did he do that? Why didn't he talk when he was in Smith's Grove? I don't need to know why. The fact that they said that he just wants to get back to his house and that's where he's headed, and that's obviously where he went, that's enough for me. I don't need to know anything else. So to me, this point, it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't have any issue with it whatsoever. And the fact that it mentions Halloween Ends abandoned this, no, I don't think it abandoned it at all, because number one, he got to where he wanted to go. Then he just left. The house got demolished. And like I've said many times before, and I've said it in recent videos, Halloween Ends is basically Michael going to die. He's like a wounded animal or a dying animal who's going out to the woods and just letting himself go. And that's exactly what happened in Halloween Ends. Whether it's because the house no longer existed because it was demolished, or whether it was because he was so injured and infected that he just said, well, not that he said it, but you get what I mean. He just went to the sewers and he just was just going to live out whatever time he had left. He had done what he needed to do. So that point about Ends abandoning it, that doesn't make any sense to me. The next point it brings up in number 3, Michael Myers killed Laurie's daughter. Says one of the most criticized moments from Halloween Kills was the final kill, Karen, Laurie's daughter. Karen spent most of Halloween 2018 trying to keep Laurie away from her family, as she was tired of her mother's obsession with Michael Myers, which she had to deal with her whole life. Karen finally believed her and put her training to good use once she saw Michael Myers standing in front of her. And from that moment on, she did everything she could to keep Allison, Laurie, and herself safe from the boogeyman. Karen saved Allison from being killed by Michael, unmasked him, led him to the mob, shot him in the head, after which she thought he was dead, but Michael survived. As Michael killed the Haddonfield mob, Karen reunited with Allison on the porch of the Myers house, and she later went upstairs to Judith's room, where she was surprised by the very alive Michael Myers who killed her. Now, I will say this. This is a fair point. This is a fair point. Why kill Karen? Maybe it could have been an attack that she survived. The only thing I can say is that it just added weight to the story as far as loss for Laurie. When I saw the movie, it really did get me. I was like, oh man, she got killed, and she had just kind of come to the realization of what her mother had been training her for so many years. So it kind of was, it was a gut punch. And actually in Halloween Kills, I really come to enjoy Karen's character. So for me, it was a tough moment. But if she had survived, and then we go to Halloween Ends, I think they would have had a lot of similar beats to the story. Plus, the way they went with Halloween Ends, they focused on Corey and Allison, and of course Laurie trying to intervene in that. So I don't know if Karen would have had enough space in that movie. Yeah, I'm sure they could have made it work. Execution is everything. But I will say, with the article, I can understand that point. That's a fair point. I wouldn't have minded if Karen had survived. So that's a point that I can deal with. Okay, now point number 2. So they're counting them down from 6 to 1. Halloween Kills made Michael Myers supernatural. Okay, here we go. Karen's death was controversial. So was Laurie being sidelined for the entire movie. But the biggest mistake and complaint of Halloween Kills was making Michael Myers supernatural again for no reason and without explanation. Now, to me, that's not true. Number one, they did talk about the fact that the fear is what powers him. That's what has, as he kills, he transcends and so forth. So they did talk about it, but he wasn't supernatural. He wasn't supernatural. Now, I know people are going to say, well, he survived this. He survived the stabbing. He survived the gunshots. Yeah, he also survived stabbings and gunshots in Halloween 78. Now, I know some people are going to sit there and say, well, this was 3 times more. Yeah, it was. But it's also a movie that did everything at a higher level as far as having a modern audience. They weren't going to just have someone shoot Michael twice and then, okay, he comes back. I mean, even in 78, he got shot 6 times. He got stabbed in the neck. He got stabbed in the gut. He got poked in the eye with the clothes hanger. So Michael went through a lot in 78. So you're talking about 40 years later in Halloween Kills. So of course they upped the ante for this modern audience. Did they do it too much? Maybe. That's a fair assessment. Maybe. But again, I don't agree with the idea. Okay, now he's supernatural. This is not like when Jason was rising from the grave as a zombie in Friday 13th Part 6. Jason Lives. Okay, so it also goes to say, as mentioned above, Michael Myers somehow survived being stabbed, beaten, kicked, and shot by Karen and the Haddonfield mob, and he got back up again without a problem to continue his killing spree. The only explanation at the time of Kills' release was that Michael Myers was supernatural again, such as the infamous Cult of Thorn storyline in Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, but the reason why and the origin of Michael's immortality were never explored. Ends didn't solve this mystery either, and even worse, it showed that Michael wasn't immortal after all, as Laurie and Allison finally killed him and later threw his body into an industrial shredder. So again, he was not supernatural in Kills. At least that's the way I look at it. Yes, a lot of shit happened to him, but again, this is in the context of a movie where you have this killer that he's just doing things that It just seems impossible. But that's how these movies have been crafted. Again, in Halloween 78, a lot of stuff that happened to him, you know. So I don't look at him as supernatural at all. I just really don't. But anyways, the article, I can understand how some people do, and especially if they're not very familiar with Michael Myers and the mythology and what they were trying to do. But David Gordon Green, he had said that he enjoys the fact there are conversations about whether or not he's supernatural. But what he said, at least the way he was interpreting it for these movies, was, I don't think he does anything that's supernatural. I just think he does things that are spectacular and resilient, but he's still a man. The final thing that they bring up in the article for Screen Rant, the number one, Halloween Ends forgot about half of Halloween Kills. Okay, so the article goes on to say, Halloween Kills left a bunch of unanswered questions and loose ends that unfortunately Halloween Ends failed to answer, and thus it ended up forgetting about half of the events of Halloween Kills. The above mentioned Michael wants to go home storyline, Michael staring out Judith's window, and his sudden immortality were completely forgotten in Halloween Ends, as were the deaths of Karen and legacy characters Tommy Doyle and Sheriff Brackett, which did no justice to these characters who ultimately died defending Haddonfield. Halloween Kills left a mess that Halloween Ends couldn't fix, and it did more harm than good to the reboot timeline by giving the trilogy an inconsistent tone and quality. Now, I think that if you want to talk about tone and it being inconsistent, I think that's a fair thing to say, because I think these three movies have different tones to them. Now, me personally, I don't have a problem with that because it gives something in each movie that's a little bit different. Halloween 2018 had the job of reintroducing these characters 40 years later, introducing Laurie's family, and obviously reintroducing Michael Myers once he escapes. And then he goes on his merry way, and people that get in the way, well, it's not good for them. Kills focused on the town, the effect that Michael's had on the town, and also Michael continuing his journey, and obviously a hell of a lot of kills. Laurie is Sideline, and Allison comes to the forefront. Then there's the time jump, and I know a lot of people have an issue with the time jump, and originally the idea was these events were going to all take place in one night. I think taking place in one night, it would have been interesting to have seen that, but at the same time, it's kind of like in this timeline, you had the police that were getting involved and they were hunting Michael down. The mob was after Michael in Halloween Kills. It's kind of like at that point, if it's still happening that night or into the early morning, it's like, where else can you go with the story? You know what I mean? So the time jump happened for Ends. Michael had disappeared. Laurie had to kind of come to terms with her trauma, come to terms with her daughter's death, come to terms with so many things. Same thing with Allison. She was trying to repair her relationship with Allison and quote unquote move on. I don't think that is a bad thing, and I don't think it's unrealistic. That is actually how things happen in life. She had spent 40 years possessed by Michael Myers, and she got therapy and so forth, and decided to move on. So I don't think, like the article was saying, these things were unresolved, like her daughter's death and Brackett and the town and defending Haddonfield. I don't think those things were unresolved. They tied them in a neat bow, saying, hey, it's 4 years later, people are trying to move on. So anyways, those were the points in the article. One or two of them I think were pretty fair as far as, yeah, I get it, how some people can look at Kills and the tone that it had that was a lot different. But I quite enjoyed Kills. I thought it was a lot of fun. Michael Myers was about as badass as I've ever seen him. So for me, it's a great Halloween movie, and it's a great slasher movie, and it gave me a lot. It really, really did. And I was able to enjoy some of the other characters that I didn't get a chance to enjoy as much in 2018. Like I said, Allison comes to the forefront. Karen has a really good character arc and so forth. And Cameron was redeemed as well. I didn't even talk about that. But Cameron, I enjoyed his character in Halloween Kills a hell of a lot more than 2018 because he redeemed himself. So again, guys, let me know what you guys think. It's an interesting conversation. And, when I saw this article come up the other day, I was like, oh man, I got to talk about this and see what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think Halloween Kills is one of the biggest failures in the franchise? Personally, I don't think so. I do not think it's a failure to the level of a Halloween Resurrection or some of the interesting choices that Rob Zombie made in his movies. I just don't. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps to support the channel, and I'd appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, do it now. This is the time to do it. And we're going to continue to talk about this and other great horror and movie content. And I'll catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.